The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. Today we're talking with Dr. Tim Arnott. He is a physician at the Lifestyle Center in Oklahoma. Welcome, doctor.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We're going to be talking today about heart disease, and so if you have someone in your family that has heart disease, or if you have you would like the information yourself, get a pen or a pencil, take a few notes. You're going to find that this is a fascinating program as we talk more specifically about cholesterol. Doctor, what exactly is cholesterol? How does the body produce it, or does the body produce it? What is it?
Cholesterol is a type of fat. It's a waxy substance, and it's very, very important to the body. In fact, every cell of the body has cholesterol in it. And what the cholesterol actually does is it sits in the cell wall. In other words, the covering of the cell is where the cholesterol is found. And it stabilizes that cell wall, gives it stability. So otherwise, we'd be much more fluid individuals. So it gives us some stability.
So it's a good thing. I mean, so often we hear about cholesterol, and it sounds like it's just a bad thing, but we really need it.
You know, if it wasn't for cholesterol, none of us would be here. Because cholesterol is actually what is used, the raw material for something called progesterone. Progesterone is that very important chemical that keeps the pregnancy developing. And so if it wasn't for cholesterol, we couldn't produce children.
Now, you're a specialist in family practice, and you've done work in lifestyle medicine as well at the Lifestyle Center in America there. What, doctor, is a good cholesterol level, and why?
Well, that's a very important question. And as we look at that question, I'd like to take our listeners out to Massachusetts. There's a little town outside of Boston called Framingham. And our government has been studying this very question of why people die of heart disease for over 50 years in Framingham, Massachusetts. And they've learned some very exciting things. There are a group of people in this country, less than 1% of us, but there's a special group. And that group, in over 40 years, developed no heart attacks, no heart disease in over 40 years. These are individuals with a total cholesterol less than 150. Now, what's important about that is that many of our listeners have probably been to the physician's office, and they've had their cholesterol tested. And when you look at the sheet where the cholesterol is actually reported, over on the right-hand side, you will see a normal range.
Normal, and then what you have.
Exactly.
Okay.
And typically, most labs will tell you that if your total cholesterol is less than 200, you're okay.
Yeah, that's right. 240 or less or something like that, they say you're just fine.
You're just fine. That's right. And so a lot of people are walking into the physician's office, and they're being told, you're okay.
But you're saying it has to be below 150 to really prevent or avoid heart attacks.
Well, what we saw in Framingham over 40 years is no one developed heart attacks if their total cholesterol was less than 150. So that becomes the new gold standard. And what people don't understand is that if your total cholesterol is between 150 and 200, individuals with cholesterols in that range, 150 to 200, have 35% of all the heart attacks in this country.
Is that right? Between 150 and 200.
Now, if they got their lab report back and they looked at it, it would be in the normal range. Say a cholesterol of 180 or 190. It'd be in the normal range, but yet those individuals
have heart attacks.
Have heart attacks.
So you're saying we need to be abnormal.
we need to be abnormal. We need to shift the normal range down about 50 points.
So how can we do that?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And I think what we are learning is, if I may take us back to a study in the British Journal of Medicine. And what they found in that study is they were looking at different populations of people, is the average cholesterol in different groups. Mm-hmm. And what they found was something very interesting. Mm-hmm. Individuals who were eating an average American diet had a total cholesterol of about 190 or 200.
Okay.
Individuals who were eating a vegetarian diet but using some dairy products had a total cholesterol of about 180. Mm-hmm. And individuals who were using a total vegetarian diet, in other words, only plants, no other animal products, their total cholesterol was about 160. And in other research, we find that the only individuals who were able to get their total cholesterol down below 150 are total vegetarians.
Do total vegetarians ever have problems with cholesterol? And if so, why?
That's a very good question. Because there are actually a number of individuals out there, probably some who are listening in today, who are total vegetarians, mm-hmm. may have been total vegetarians for years, and yet their cholesterol is running above 150.
I can think of several. We do a program that I'm involved with where we take, the blood levels as well, and there's one lady who is a total vegetarian, but she has a very high cholesterol, always seems to have it.
And there is about 1 out of 500 individuals who actually have a genetic problem. Mm-hmm. And they actually don't make enough of the receptors that absorbs the cholesterol. And so they have very high cholesterol levels.
Is that dangerous for them?
Oh, it's absolutely dangerous. In fact, these individuals have heart attacks in their late 20s, early 30s. But that's a rare situation. Mm-hmm. And I think the message we want to get out to individuals is that it's possible to be a total vegetarian and still be on a highly refined and highly processed diet. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, take for example yesterday, we were out looking for some bread in a grocery store. And in many different products you find in the grocery store, you will find one particular ingredient. You want to watch for this ingredient. Mm. It's called partially hydrogenated vegetable oil.
Okay.
Now it sounds healthy because it's vegetable. It's total vegetarian. And yet this substance, partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, mm-hmm. actually acts in the body just like saturated fat.
Okay.
Now you might ask, well, what is saturated fat?
And how does it interact with cholesterol? Yeah.
Saturated fat is a fat that at room temperature is solid. So
Okay.
the butter is a good example. Mm-hmm. Very high concentrations of saturated fat. What we know is that the saturated fat that you eat mm-hmm. is actually 2 or 3 times more powerful at raising your cholesterol level than if you were to eat cholesterol itself.
Oh, so if you eat it, it's just like magnifies the cholesterol that's there.
Well, actually, the cholesterol is made by every cell in the body. Mm-hmm. But most of the cholesterol comes from the liver, at least 500 milligrams a day. But when you increase the amount of saturated fat in the diet, mm-hmm. it's like pushing down on the accelerator and speeding up the cholesterol manufacture, the cholesterol production that the liver does. So that's why it's important to move away from partially hydrogenated vegetable oils in particular.
So 2 things. Number 1, try and get the cholesterol below 150 total. Secondly, avoid partially hydrogenated vegetable oil.
This is very easy.
Okay.
It may sound difficult, but actually, if you choose foods just as they come from nature, mm-hmm. if you get your food right from the hand of the Creator, you will miss out on all of these additives that can actually increase the cholesterol level, such as partially hydrogenated vegetable oils. So what we're talking about is when you go into the grocery store, mm-hmm. Where you want to spend your time is primarily in the produce section. Mm-hmm. fruits and vegetables.
Is there anything in the produce section that we should avoid?
You know, to my knowledge, there is nothing in the produce section that will raise your total cholesterol above 150.
Unless it's in a little box or container next to the produce thing that they want you to put
Exactly.
on top.
If the creator produced it and it hasn't had something added or something removed, it will not raise your total cholesterol above 150.
So I'm a total vegetarian, let's say, and I take my cholesterol. It is still above 150 or somewhere between there and 200. And I'm trying to do these things you're mentioning, and I've tried to cut out the partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. Should I look somewhere else? Is there anything else besides the genetic and that substance?
Well, that's very, very good question. And Dr. Gabe Mirkin out at Georgetown University has been doing some nutritional research out there, and he's found out something very interesting. And what he's found out is that whenever we eat more calories than what we need for any given day, the body has to take the excess calories and store it. But in order to make those storage packages that are headed out to the fat cells, out to the storage areas, it has to generate cholesterol. So whenever you eat more calories than what you're burning, you're raising your cholesterol level. Now, what most people may not understand is as we get older, the basal metabolism of the body, in other words, the rate at which we burn up energy, actually starts to decline as we get older. So if you continue the same eating habits, the same eating patterns as you get older, you're more and more likely to be taking in more calories.
So you need to eat less as you get older.
Exactly. So the real key is as you get older, go to a lighter and lighter evening meal, because that one has the most power to actually decrease the weight and decrease the calorie intake. And this will help to reduce the cholesterol.
So increase the things from the produce section, decrease the saturated fat or partially hydrogenized vegetable oil.
Absolutely.
Decrease the cholesterol below 150 if possible, and make sure that you're eating less as you get older. Now, what do you mean when you're older? Am I older?
Well, you know, the other way around this is to increase your exercise level.
Okay, so you can eat even at my age. So you are saying I'm older. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, that's not what I'm trying to tell you. But honestly, I mean, it depends on the individual's activity level.
Okay.
And what I would say is this. It's very important when you go to the physician's office to get a copy of that cholesterol level. In other words, don't just have the physician tell you what it is, because when you get home, you're going to forget. Get a copy of it and know where you are, and then know what your goals are. And if you're not reaching your goals of getting it down to 150, 160 or below, then that's when you might want to back off on the evening meal.
Okay.
So know what your goals are, and then have a set of tools to get you there.
Now, you're a family physician. When is it that you should start knowing what your cholesterol level is as an American? I mean, is it when you're in your teens? Is it when you're 1, 2, 3 years old? Is it or 20s? When should you start checking your cholesterol level with a blood stick or however you do that?
Well, that's a very good question, because what they're finding out now is that if you are in your 20s and you have a total cholesterol that's greater than 240, those individuals will live 6 years less than the rest of the individuals who have total cholesterols under 240.
So in your 20s, you need to start getting it checked, or earlier?
They're recommending it when you get to 20 years of age. You should get it checked about every 5 years. But I would say that if you're entering the 40s and 50s, you probably should get it checked at least every year. But the key is to know where your goals are, to know that total cholesterol should be under 150, not just under 200.
Do you get yours checked every year?
Yes, I usually do, yes.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you what it is, but that's important to know. And so this is something you should be doing. Your doctor probably won't tell you to get it checked every couple years normally.
They may or they may not.
Okay. So we need to get it checked. We need to decrease the amount of food that we're eating, especially if we're not exercising.
If we're not meeting our goals.
Right. If we're not meeting our goals, we need to have some kind of target, and that target you're suggesting for everybody is 150 or less.
Absolutely.
Okay. We're talking with Dr. Tim Arnott. We're talking about cholesterol and heart disease, and we've got some very practical suggestions about what to do to know where we are, and we have talked about how we need to set goals and look at that 150 level as being optimal. When we come back, we're going to talk more about practical things to do to lower our cholesterol. We're glad that you've joined us, and we hope that you do join us when we come back.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Deal and Dr. Eileen Ludington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who were able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Deal and Dr. Ludington have been featured on 3ABN, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge, so call or write today.
Welcome back, or welcome if you've just joined us. We've been talking with Dr. Tim Arnott. He is a specialist in lifestyle medicine and also family practice. We've been talking about heart disease and cholesterol, and we've discovered that our body makes it. It's essential. The problem is that we many times have too much of it because of the diet that we eat, and we've been talking about how it is that we can lower our cholesterol levels. And you've suggested a very, well, it's lower than most of us think about, but a goal of 150 to have our cholesterol level at. Now, let's say I go to my doctor and say, I heard this program on TV and the physician there was saying my cholesterol needs to be at 150. Is the doctor going to be aware of that?
Well, more and more people are becoming aware of this. In fact, the editors of Scientific American Medicine, a major textbook in internal medicine, have now come out and recommended, as of 1998, that the ideal total cholesterol is under 150. So it's making headway. More and more individuals are understanding this, and it's primarily from the research that's coming out of Framingham, Massachusetts.
Now, you mentioned that we should be getting our cholesterol checked by having our blood drawn, at least in our early 20s. But let's say that I'm 10 years old or 15 years old. What should my cholesterol be at 10 years old, 15 years old? What should the level be?
Well, usually it's going to be 100 plus your age.
Okay.
That's probably a normal cholesterol until you reach the age of 50. 100 plus your age is the gold standard for total cholesterol or less.
Now, when we were talking before, you also mentioned that as we get older, we sometimes need to decrease the amount of food that we're eating depending on what our exercise is. Is this the reason that we have increased cholesterol when we get older, is because we're not exercising as much? And what role does exercise play in lowering cholesterol?
Well, actually, a very interesting study was done at Stanford University. And what they did was they took the two diets that are recommended by the American Heart Association, called a Step 1 and a Step 2 diet. The Step 2 diet is a little bit more conservative. You're allowed a little less cholesterol, a little less saturated fat.
Okay.
And what they found was that they were not able to get individuals' cholesterol levels down on those Step 1 and Step 2 diets. In other words, the diets that are currently being recommended to help us avoid heart disease, they showed did not lower cholesterol unless the individuals exercised. The individuals who did the Step 2 diet, these special heart prevention diets, and exercised were able to lower their cholesterol. And so what we can see happening here is as you exercise, the basal metabolism of the body actually speeds up. you're burning off more energy even after you exercise, because that effect of exercise lasts for many hours. And so you're actually burning off more calories. And remember, your cholesterol responds to this balance of the energy that you take in versus the energy that you burn off. So if you're burning off more, your cholesterol level is going to tend to be lower.
So it really is important to exercise. Your diet is important, but equally important, would you say, exercise is?
You know, one of the other important things about exercise that sort of relates to cholesterol is that in the body, the Creator has put in these extra blood vessels. They're called collateral blood vessels.
Okay.
In other words, in the heart, there are 3 main arteries, but there's these collateral arteries that also go down the same general pathways, but in a little bit different routes. Mm-hmm. And what can happen is if you exercise on a regular basis, vigorous exercise to the point of sweating, over time, those collateral blood vessels, those extra blood vessels will actually enlarge. And in a sense, you can do your own bypass. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not recommending that, someone who needs a bypass, that they can just exercise and perhaps...
You're talking about bypass surgery. In other words, if they gets blocked, they bypass it with another artery or
exactly.
a vein that they take from somewhere else.
But this is an important concept in physiology that individuals can understand, that they can actually increase the flow of blood to their tissue mm-hmm. and actually move blood around those blocked areas through an exercise program.
Okay, we've talked about diet and how it can lower our cholesterol. We've talked about exercise and how it can do the same and help us avoid a heart attack like you're talking about here, or surgery, something to that nature. We've talked about a lot about plant foods and a total vegetarian diet. Are there any plant foods that could actually elevate our cholesterol?
Well, according to Dr. Gabe Mirkin there at Georgetown University, what he has found is that the saturated fat that we eat here in this country is not largely used for energy. Now, what he's found in the research literature is that in individuals who aren't eating enough calories, in other words, they don't have much to eat, the saturated fat that they take in is actually burned for energy. But in a society such as we have, where we have plenty to eat, that the saturated fat that you eat isn't used for energy. It actually goes to raise your cholesterol level.
So like nuts?
So any food that does have saturated fat in it,
okay.
If you are on a diet that has plenty of calories, if you get too much of those saturated fats, you could potentially raise your total cholesterol level. So yes, if you eat too many nuts, too many olives, seeds, avocados, and your cholesterol is not reaching, in that area where you want it to be, you might want to decrease those higher fat plant foods.
They're not unhealthy for you if you are not overdoing it.
They're very healthy foods.
Mm-hmm.
No question about it. We need all of these different fats. We need saturated fat. We need all the different fats. But the point is, if you're not getting the cholesterol down, this is something else that you can think about doing that may help you. Decreasing the amount, the proportion of the nuts and olives and those higher fat plant foods.
Now, I know that it's the target here is 150 for our cholesterol, but is it ever possible for someone to have, a cholesterol of 150 and still develop a blockage in their arteries?
I was recently out at some meetings at Loma Linda University, and a gentleman came up to me who told me that his cholesterol level had been averaging around 140 for many years, and yet he had been diagnosed with coronary artery disease. And upon further questioning, he told me that his homocysteine level was 15. Now, what individuals need to understand if they're going to embrace this plant-based diet is that something very important must be added to the diet, and that is vitamin B12. Because if you don't get enough vitamin B12, there is an amino acid inside the body that can start to go up. And what we know now is that total vegetarians have the lowest B12 levels. of individual groups out there. They also have the highest homocysteine levels.
Is that right?
And homocysteine, in fact, the physicians' health study down at Harvard University, the individuals that were the top 5% for homocysteine had almost 9 times the risk of a heart attack.
So you have to have the vitamin B12 to elevate your homocysteine.
Actually,
to decrease your
exactly.
homocysteine.
You need adequate levels of vitamin B12 to keep the homocysteine level down.
And if that homocysteine level goes up, you can develop a blockage and have heart disease just like anybody else.
That's right. And not only heart disease, but also stroke and cerebral vascular
So
disease.
if I go to my physician and say, check my homocysteine level, are most labs set up to do that? Can they do that just about everywhere now?
Yes, actually they can. We use a lab that's very easily able to do the homocysteine level.
Do most people in the world have problems with heart disease?
You know, according to Dr. William Castelli, who was one of the directors of the Framingham heart study that we mentioned earlier.
Right.
He was there for over 30 years, intensively studying why do Americans develop heart disease. And he was looking at the world literature. And what he discovered was that 4 out of 5 people on this planet cannot get their total cholesterol above 150.
So in other words, they don't have all of the bad substances here that we have to do that.
They're living on unrefined, unprocessed plants, primarily. And the other thing he found out was that 1 out of 5 people in this world can't get their total cholesterol below 150.
And I think I know where those people live, mostly in Western countries, right?
Now what he found out, that's right. Now what he found out was that the first group, those who can't get it above 150, they don't get heart disease. The other group who can't get it down below 150, they get the heart disease.
We've been talking with Dr. Tim Arnott from the Lifestyle Center of America. We've been talking about heart disease as it relates to cholesterol. And we have learned that there are some special things we need to do to avoid elevating our cholesterol. And that is not eating a lot of food, especially if we're getting adequate nutrition. Make sure to decrease the saturated fat in our diets, and many other tips that you've learned today. We hope that this program has been helpful to you, and that if you have a family, that you are aware of where you are in terms of your numbers. Even if your children or the young people in your home are in their 20s, it's a good idea to get their cholesterol checked to know where they stand. We hope that today's program has been helpful, that as a result you'll have health that lasts for a lifetime.